Chapter 19. Companions Assemble. Lydia and her companions appeared in the entrance hall of the old rectory. It was 20 minutes to 2 in the morning by the grandfather clock. Freddie had, perhaps unsurprisingly, forgotten Lydia's warning about being suitably dressed. His pink pyjamas covered him admirably, however. Lydia looked around at the others and realised with a jolt she had forgotten to warn Jimmy. He was wearing a pair of baggy undershorts and an unbuttoned pyjama top. She found the muscles that his top revealed momentarily distracting. Jimmy was blinking stupidly, having just woken up. "Welcome, Lydia and friends," Ambrose said, his arms wide in greeting. "Mr. Oluwale, if I may." With a wave of his hand, Ambrose instantly clothed Jimmy in neat chinos, a light cashmere pullover, and a pair of tan boat shoes. The young man twitched with shock as the garments appeared. Then he ran his hands over the clothes to smooth them and smiled. "Would you all please join me in the drawing room?" Ambrose continued, opening a door. "There are introductions to be made and things I should like to say." They filed through into the room beyond the door. It was spacious, with muted lighting and informal seating. A log fire filled the broad fireplace and scented the room with a comforting fragrance. The students sat, flopped, or crumpled onto the armchairs and sofas. They found they were all facing Ambrose, except Lydia, who discovered she was sitting by his side facing the gathering. "Thank you all for coming here this late evening, or early morning, depending on how you regard such things. For those of you I have not previously encountered, please allow me to introduce myself. I am Ambrose Ward, and for the sake of argument and appearance, I am Lydia's uncle. I believe Lydia has given you some of the background and purpose of this assemblage of fine young witches and wizards." The students nodded. Ambrose smiled. "That is well. Unfortunately, I will be somewhat restricted in adding anything to what she has told you. The Alterworlders have some ability to detect when I am trying to pass on information. They have an even more unfortunate ability to be able to prevent me from so doing. I can tell you that I have been around for thousands of years. I am also the unwitting cause of the friction between our world and theirs. I have consequently been involved in every conflict that there has been between our worlds. The Alterworlders instigated each of these conflicts. Well, apart from the accident which started the whole unfortunate affair. We have never been the aggressors, though I imagine that is not necessarily how the Alterworlders see it." Ambrose stopped and looked at the youthful faces in front of him. "My dear young people," he said with solemnity, "you wonderful companions and friends to my much-loved Lydia. It grieves me profoundly that you are so young and we are so close to the task which faces you. I had hoped we would have more time to prepare, and that you would have more time to become seasoned for what you may experience. You will be, I fear, the youngest band to set forth on such a quest. But I have no qualms about your abilities, nor about your qualifications. You are all exceptional students from an exceptional school. You each have particular abilities and strengths which complement each other. Lydia has chosen well. I am heartened to meet you, Mr. Zabini. You and Lydia did not start out well together. We are aware of your cousin Blaise, a contemporary of our friend Harry Potter, and, evidently, still immersed in some shady dealings. But you have become a fine young man, with a real ambition to clear your family's name. Welcome to this band, and all power to you, young friend." Corbin Zabini swallowed, smiled, and nodded to the old man. Ambrose scanned the others. "Miss Ogden," he smiled, "I have of course heard much of you, both from your friends and from the staff at Hogwarts. I am delighted Lydia ultimately made the correct choice and invited you. You are, I can see, a warm and kindly soul. The team will need your warmth and kindness at times when the others are too pressed, perhaps, to concentrate on such values. Welcome. Shona blushed and seemed lost for words. Mr. Perec, Ambrose continued, strangely you take up the position of the senior member of the group. I have heard much about you from Lydia, and much more from our good friend Odysseus. Both are very fond of you, and both great admirers of your intellect and ability. I admire your willingness to join the team. I admire it all the more, knowing that willingness is born of a dedication to those friends. I welcome you. Thank you, sir, Dev replied with a nod. Mr. Twycross, Ambrose beamed at Dean. Another dedicated friend. Indeed, so dedicated to your friend Odysseus that you are prepared to languish in his shadow. It's only a skinny little shadow, Dean pointed out. I still get plenty of sunlight. A chuckle ran round those gathered. Ambrose held up a finger. Always self-effacing, Dean. I know from Professor McGonagall that, after Odysseus and Lydia, you are quite possibly the brightest student in your year. Your ability, I gather, makes you appear less studious than you actually are. This is simply because you never have to make an effort to understand. It comes so naturally to you. And of course, you are something of a jester. We are rather similar, you and I, save that my beard surpasses yours, for now at least. You and your facial hair are welcome. Dean grinned. The few hairs on his chin hardly counted as a beard, but he was proud of them. Miss Wood, Ambrose went on, I have heard that you are easygoing and unflappable, yet quick-minded and possessing lightning reflexes. I also sense that you anticipate the dangers you may face, but are undeterred. While not a member of Lydia's closest circle of friends, you have always recognized their value as exceptional students and good people. And you are a friend to Freddie, which I believe speaks to the goodness of your heart. I welcome you with delight. Glad to be here, said Christie with a bow of her head. And finally, Ambrose said, Mr. Oluwale, we meet at last. I have heard much of you from Lydia, Freddie, and Sophie. It irks me that Lydia almost omitted your invitation. Then she forgot to warn you she would pluck you from your bed in the middle of the night to deposit you here. My apologies on her behalf. Ambrose gave Lydia a sidelong glance before continuing. Regardless, Lydia arrived at the correct decision and invited you. I am relieved she did so. It is apparent to me that you are an includer, a consulter, and a balancer. Lydia would do well to make use of those qualities in leading her team. These are traits which do not come easily to her at times. And you're a solid, down-to-earth sort. I like that. I have myself visited the earth on a number of occasions. But joking aside, I believe you embody a quality the group possesses. It is a quality which may prove the key to its success. It is the quality of love. Whether it is the love of friends, the love of family, the love of one's people or of one's world. Love will carry you all along the dark path you must tread. I welcome you, Jimson Oluwale. Jimmy nodded and grinned. Ambrose paused for a moment and passed his searching gaze across the faces of the companions. I perceive that some of you have questions, he said. As I have said, I am unable to give any further details of the task ahead of you. Mr. Anderson, Oddie, has been primed over the years with as much information as I had and was able to relate. He has also had an opportunity to read a number of relevant books. Various expressions of mirth came from the gathered students. Indeed, no great surprise there, Ambrose smiled. He will provide knowledge and interpretation. All of you will assist in making judgments, but Lydia has to be the one to lead. The final decisions will lie with her. She has unusual abilities, as you may know. She also has a fine mind, perhaps more so than you know. I would like to use however much time we have left to train you all to work together as a team. We shall make arrangements soon. For now, you have been inconvenienced sufficiently. I will answer any questions you have if I am able. After that, Lydia will return you to your sleeping quarters. Questions? Corbin raised a hand. Is Lydia a chosen one like Harry Potter was? Ambrose smiled. Lydia has been chosen, but only by me. I sometimes have feelings about the future. It is an awareness of the important points in time, the junctions, the crossroads, so to speak. I had a feeling about... Well, let me just say I have known Lydia since she was born. She knows more and may tell you, if she decides it is relevant. Suffice it to say, I have tried to nurture her in such a way that she is well prepared for the role of leading you on the path before you. Dev raised a hand. Mr. Ward, have you had these premonitions or feelings about any of the other members of this group? Yes, Mr. Perech, I have. Ambrose nodded. But that is all I can say. Dean waved at the old man. Hey, you must have sent people on quests like this before, over the years. Ambrose dipped his head. Quite so. And they must all have been successful, because our world's still here. Ambrose raised an eyebrow. Perceptive of you, Dean. Dean grinned for a brief moment. So, how do we compare? Ambrose folded his arms and frowned. He took a deep breath and looked across at Lydia. His arms tightened, as though he were hugging himself. This is painful to answer, he said in a low voice. Partly from emotion, partly due to external influence. The colour had drained from his face. He seemed to have aged. Lydia shuffled in her seat. Some of those gathered looked at each other. You are the youngest, except for one boy on a previous quest, he continued. All succeeded. Not all survived. One is still trapped. Every team had losses. The old man's voice had dwindled to a low croak. Beads of sweat stood on his brow. That's enough, Uncle, Lydia said. I'll take them back now. Ambrose nodded and gave her a weak smile. The students left him. Freddie sat up in bed. He'd been having a dream about a library. It was not somewhere he normally visited in dreams. He had nothing against libraries, as long as they had storybooks. The ones with the pictures were the best. The school library wasn't much fun. It only had textbooks full of theories or spells or potion recipes. They weren't fun, unless you were a weirdo like Oddie or Lids. Lydia, that was it. That was what had woken him up. Lydia had appeared in the library in his dream and had grabbed his shoulder and shaken him. She'd said something. What had it been? He tried to picture her in the library. She'd called him something. Freddie, you spanner. That had been it, spanner. Somehow her made-up insults were worse than just using swear words. It's like a swear wasn't enough. She had to make up something just for him. Still, it was nice that she thought enough of him to do that. You'd only do that for a friend. Would she do that for the rest of the companions? Maybe they wouldn't annoy her as much as he did. No, get back to the dream. What else had she said? We've got to go. Oh, crap sticks, I've messed everything up now. We've got to go. Wake up. Well, he'd woken up. Now what did she... Freddie found himself standing in the entrance hall of the old rectory again. Sophie was next to him. She was wearing a deep blue nightgown. It suited her. Lydia was on his other side. She was wearing her muggle jeans and a long-sleeved t-shirt. He looked down. He was still wearing the white pyjamas, with all the tiny red flowers that he'd worn to bed, the ones which looked pink from a distance. Wake up, sleepy drawers, Lydia said. We're back at the rectory. I've done it. blood and butt cheeks, I've done it. What a bloody idiot. What have you done, Lids? He asked. Ambrose stepped out from the study door. She has issued the challenge, Fredlington. Sophie. We are at war, I am afraid. Come in. He led them into his study and sat them around the fire. There was a book open on a small table next to his armchair. He closed it with a sigh. I'm sorry, Lydia was saying. Why the hell did I do it? I'm sorry, Ambrose. What the hell happens now? Calm yourself, Lydia, Ambrose soothed. The Watcher has skill and experience. He is highly motivated to start this conflict before you are fully ready. You, on the other hand, have been under a great deal of stress, and it has disrupted your sleep patterns for quite some time. There is no need for recrimination about what has passed. We have now to look to the future. We must prepare. How long do we have, Ambrose? Sophie asked. I make it around 7 3/4 hours, he stated. We have until noon. In the ensuing silence, only the crackling of the fire and the padding of Xander's paws could be heard. Ah, Xander, said Ambrose. I presume you were out on patrol. I was, he confirmed. I felt the disturbance and came here as soon as I was able. Wanted to say goodbye to Elsa. She's a good kid, though a little timid still. All three of the students had their mouths open in surprise. Lydia managed to speak first. What the flip? You can talk? Why didn't you tell me? I could have learnt so much from you. You could have told me about Ambrose. Precisely why Ambrose asked me not to speak to you, Xander explained. Oddie worked it out, of course, though not for months. Tricked me, he did, the devious wee reprobate. He said Ambrose had told him I could speak. Ambrose chuckled. So that's why you were so against me sharing your mind when I was trying it out with the birds and dogs and so on, Lydia said. Xander shook his head. That's because I'm a cat. That sort of thing may be acceptable to a dog, but cats are private. No self-respecting cat would want that kind of intrusion. Though it would have been particularly inconvenient in my case. Xander has been exceptionally useful to have around, Ambrose explained. I have always kept cats, because they have a unique ability to sense the proximity of the altar world. Having Xander on the team has been, well, magnificent. You may have noticed something about dear Ambrose, Xander observed to the students. He is always particularly complimentary when he is about to ask a huge and onerous favour. Be warned. Freddie shrugged. Well, we know he's going to ask us all a big favour. We've got to save the world. Sophie looked at Lydia, then at Ambrose. We're going to be expecting some mighty compliments from you, old man. Ambrose cringed. Good Lord, you sounded so much like your dear Nana. I'm quaking in my boots as we speak. Well, my carpet slippers, perhaps. I will, said Xander. Enough frivolity. We have until noon to prepare, if I remember correctly. We do indeed, Ambrose confirmed. I suggest you go to your rooms here in the rectory and get some sleep. You, Xander, may sleep in the boot room. I do not care to have you and Lydia keeping each other awake. The rest of the companions will be allowed to sleep through until the normal time. Then I shall gather them here. We shall breakfast. Then we will set out. I shall arrange things with the Derowitham, the Druids. By the by, you should keep Xander's little secret from your fellow companions until you are settled into your quest. I do not imagine they will need any further distractions. Now away to your beds. How are we going to sleep with all this going on? Freddie protested. Soundly, Ambrose commanded.